Hey everyone, and welcome to what is part 20 in this FXS Lowrider restoration series. If this is your first time joining us, click up here in the top right. We'll take you to the first video in this series. In our last episode, we prepped the pistons, removing the flaws, washed everything up nice, installed it onto the engine as well as the rings. And then we prepped the cylinders and installed them over the pistons and locked everything down nice, completing the short block of the engine. Way back when, in video 3, when I got the heads back, I thought this was going to be a 4-part video. I didn't think I would be doing a whole lot of work here with these. And I put these back together really quickly. And the heads themselves, they're fine. They were cleaned up real good. But this right here, the rocker boxes, this is going to need some reinspection done at the same level of quality that was done with the rest of the motorcycle. So we're going to take these apart. And we're going to do that. We're going to look at these heads and make sure that everything's good inside. And we're going to close them back up and do it right. Then we're going to mount these on the bike. So let's get started. Be loosening these nuts with a 1/2-inch drive. I don't expect any problem as this was just rebuilt and hasn't seen any heat cycles as of yet. This was also put together before I picked up the Nordlock. So I'm going to have to think about the Nordlock washers as a possibility for this. And just pop the rocker box cover right off. No worries at all. I'm going to take a look at this gasket on here later as I clean it up and make sure that the gasket is still good. If not, I'm not going to risk it. I'm going to buy another gasket. It has been already crushed. I turn my attention to the rocker boxes here. We see these replacement nuts I bought with the reflectors on them. They're already cracked. They're only about 10 years old. The originals were cracked too. I'm thinking maybe the next ones I put on are just going to be solid chrome and not have reflectors because heat cycles just cause that plastic to crack. It's just not worth dealing with. Look on the bottom here of these rocker boxes, and there are no horror shows. Obviously, this has been looked at. It just hasn't been taken apart. One thing that I do want to focus on is end play. Right here on this one side, I definitely didn't take a look at that. I do want to measure it and make sure it's within specification. We are going to take all this apart and clean it. Put it back together, measure end play, and shim it if necessary. Make sure we're looking good there, obviously. But I don't expect a lot of work, but we do have to go over it. So I'm going to secure the nut up front with a 5/16 hex. Like this, I'm going to let it roll down to the table there to secure it. Then I'm going to use the box side of a 5/8 wrench to loosen the nut in the back. Just like that. It's not easy. Thing's really on there. And these things, like I said, they're destroyed. The glass always breaks. And repeat the same thing on the other side. Really tough. Really tough. I got these washers here. I have to work them out. This one's in rather good. These are going to be replaced. Now I'm moving that hex bolt on the other side back and forth a couple times just to loosen things up a little bit. I'm going to give it some rapid taps at the end with the nylon end of my small hammer. I'll just slide everything out nice and slowly. And then I will pull out the rocker. There's the spacer. You have to contort it just a certain way. It comes right out. There we go. And there's nothing left on this side. We can see straight through the other side now. I'm going to reassemble these pieces outside the rocker box and turn up the microphone so we can hear this. While that was a bit hard to hear through the mic, what we have is some deflection on the rocker bushings on both sides. One side worse than the other. It appears that they are slightly out of round. This right here brings up a secondary issue I can't even get into yet. I'm going to have to pull the second one out before I can even discuss it. So let's do that now. I'll repeat the same process for disassembly, starting to loosen it by turning back and forth using my small nylon hammer. Remember, we're only working against the nylon bushing on the other side. So I pull that out. And we're going to reassemble this outside and do our inspection again. I'm feeling nothing detectable on this bushing right here. As I go to this side, I feel the slightest hint, just the slightest hint of some deflection. So I'm going to have to store these to the side and the rocker box. And what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to put these all off to the side. I'm going to take the other head and disassemble it. I'm going to pull out the other rockers and do the same test. I do have a feeling that that first one was going to be the worst from smacking into the rocker box cover shown here. We dug out that metal to fix it, but the damage was done. Move the small parts from the first head out of the way. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to figure out how to address that one rocker arm. Am I going to replace the entire rocker arm? Am I going to just replace the bushings? You have to keep in mind that the reamer for the bushing is about $200. So if I'm going to do that, I have to be all in to replace all of the bushings. Because on top of that, the bushings themselves are $50. So we're looking at about $250 to do complete bushing reworking on this. Adding to this complexity is the possibility of purchasing an entirely new kit with all the parts for around $250. And this also includes the new rocker shafts, screws, seals, and everything I'm going to have to purchase anyway if I don't buy this kit. So many choices. Stop for a moment, we'll get some quick end play readings. This side is a tight pull at 13 thousandths. This side is a loose pull at 7, but 8 doesn't fit, so we're looking at just under 8. Again, the plastic of both of these nuts are cracked. And while that complete kit sounds tempting and convenient, nothing about this project has been about the replacing of wholesale parts. I've done my best to go and get bushings or seals or whatnot and try and repair the original parts wherever possible. Also, I don't know where that kit's made from or why it's so cheap. If it's made in like Pyongyang or God knows where, if it's going to fail from metal fatigue, the quality of the metal. So should I go and replace the bushings and maybe I could get these original AMF parts running brand new again? It's something to think about. I'll probably meet with some folks in the forum and have a discussion about this and then come back to this project in a couple days. With the cost of tools aside, I think there's a personal satisfaction in being able to repair the part by going and replacing and reaming the new bushing. The alternative works. It's pretty much just spending money to have somebody or some company, some service basically do it for you. This one, I don't feel any deflection on this side. And on this side, again, I feel that very tiny amount of deflection. These feel like the same characteristics as the last one I tested on both sides. Like it's just the same type of wear, having no other issues. I have a very good feeling that the fourth one is going to be very much like the second and third. Let's just pop this one out and take a measurement again. I'm leaning towards obviously replacing the bushings. There are other things we have to look at beyond the results of this fourth one. The condition of the rocker itself and the face that touches the actual valve. So there are other things to look at. Let's take a look at the results of this one. Yeah, same thing. No deflection up top here. Everything's absolutely fine. And just an absolute hint of minor deflection on the bottom, just like the second and the third one. Let's take some measurements of the shafts. I did the first 3 off camera so nobody would have to sit through it. These are the results for these 2 over here. Everything was within 1/1000th of an inch. It looked absolutely fine along the 3 points that I had measured twice. 90-degree offset. You could see on the front rocker box, I did that one that appeared fine as well, leaving that remaining troubled one that we talked about. So this one has the noise, the deflection in that bushing, and I want to see if it affected the shaft as well. So we're going to take some measurements of this one on camera using the same exact procedure. All oil and dirt will be cleaned off of the measured areas. And I'll use the spacer as a support to hold it up while I take these measurements. Clean paper towel will also be used to clean the micrometer faces at regular intervals. And I'm setting it exactly so that this points up, using this as a 0-degree reference for my 90-degree measurement. And we got 0.554 thousandths of an inch, a desired value. Each measurement is taken multiple times to ensure there's no error. The shaft is then rolled 90 degrees and this process is repeated. Again, 0.554, very good. Both the micrometer and the shaft are going to be recleaned as I move to the next test point. Even if the test point wasn't riding on a bushing, I still wanted to have one extra one for control. Once cleaned, I set it up into the 0 degree position. Again, this one reads 0.554 thousandths of an inch. We rotate 90 degrees. This reading came out to 0.5538. I felt like I took the reading a bit north of center. So when I take the reading again the next time, I see that it's actually 0.5539. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to opt to take the reading yet again and see what I get for a third value after I record 39. The third measurement shows 39. We're going to stay with that. So we're going to clean the final test area as well as the micrometer as we set the reference back to 0 degrees. We're looking at 0.5537 on the meter. I write it down on the paper wrong. I correct it later. Measure it again. Same number. And then I measure it again. Same number. Good enough for me. I'm going to write that down on the paper. I'm going to correct my mistake. Turn it 90 degrees. Take my last measurement now. We're looking at 0.554. Very nice. The results show very little to no wear on these surfaces. Doesn't look like there's any problem on these parts. We can see right here is the worst measurement, and it's like 0.3 of a thousandth of an inch compared to the one on the other side was 0.2 of a thousandth. So I'm going to put oil on this part now like I did with the other so it doesn't rust. Put this part back with the other head, keeping everything in order, and then we're going to do another inspection. We're going to polish up the pads on the rocker arms now and check the condition of them, make sure the condition is good. We can see a shine where the rocker meets the valve. We're going to make sure there's not any wear that went through the hardened metal surface. I'm going to use some polishing paste on this, clean it up. I could flatten this further. I would be hesitant to take off some of the hardened surface from here. It's very thin. I don't see any horror shows. This is reusable, and this is what all the other ones look like too as well. I also check this other side, make sure it's still round and there's no damage, but the rockers themselves, everything here seem to be in good order. I re-oil these areas after I polish them so they don't rust. Keep this process for all the other ones the exact same way. That being the last test, I took my findings to the forum, sort of brought it up for debate what I should do. Should I get an entire replacement kit, or should I spring for the money for the tools? One of the people on the forum, who asked to be anonymous, was kind enough to send me by mail all of the special tools required to re-hone the bushings. So I am going to, in fact, buy the bushings and just replace those, and that's going to be the strategy here. Picked up a cheap 9/16 tap that I didn't mind destroying. I'm turning it in the bushing so it just passes the bushing on the other side. Good enough turns to hold it in nicely. I'm going to check, make sure of that before I continue. And I'm dropping in a drift, and I'm going to hold it centered, and I give it a couple of raps with a hammer. And just a couple is all it takes to see that it loosened on the bottom there, looking real nice. I just give it a couple more is enough to knock it right out of the rocker. Came out real easy. So we'll turn this off, and we'll put this off to the side. Yeah, we'll put it down, move on to the next side. Done the same procedure, but I'll speed it up. And I want to make sure, obviously, I don't damage the rocker. When I do this, I'm being very careful. So I'm going to do the same procedure. And then once it's removed, I can look inside. I see everything is nice and clear. Once it's out of there, and we're ready. Yeah, so clean that up and put new bushings in that. That's done. Here's something I noticed. The bushings for this rocker are solid and have no marking or indication on them. And the bushings for this rocker have a 10 in the diamond, and they have a sort of slit on them, a detent going along them. See that right there? So these may have been swapped out. Again, as this bushing tool was borrowed, I wasn't familiar with it. I did test it out in one of the older bushings before making this video. Got this rocker all cleaned up. We're going to get started with the bushing installation now. Now I'm using the Jim's kit 17428-57K. We're going to be starting on this side of the rocker because this is the side that has the oil port and requires extra attention. We can see that port right here on the bushing. Give the bushing a little spray with light oil so there's no galling when it's pressed in. We can see over here, one side is chamfered. That's the side that we're going to be putting in first so that it pushes in evenly and straight. When matching up this position, don't match it up to the outside hole over here. Match it up to the inside hole slightly off. I'm going to clean all the tools properly. Make sure there's no debris on them. I want everything to be clean just once over. Be sure as you set this up that you check and recheck the alignment of this port. There is no way to go back and correct this once you start seating this. I do the initial tightening of the nut by hand. Before it fully seats, I make sure it doesn't rotate any. With this tool, I simply tighten down with the box end of 2 wrenches progressively, pulling the bushing in to full seat, and it's just going to be flush with the end of the rocker when it's finished. Fully seated, I break tension. We're going to remove the tool now. Take all this equipment off. Carefully remove this long bolt without scoring the bushing. And I'm going to run a wire through. This confirms that the oil port's lined up with the hole in the bushing. Everything was seated correctly. Very nice. And we can see that the bushing is seated flush with the face of the rocker. It doesn't extend out beyond it. This is a good fit. Ready to move on to the other side. This side is easier because there's no oil port, so you just have to put it chamfered end in first. That's it. And I set up the tool for this process. Tighten it down in the exact same manner. Remove the installation tool and we do our inspection. See how it came out. Bushing is installed perfectly. And there we go. Those are the bushings installed on one rocker. I'm going to do all 4 of the rockers the exact same way. I'm not going to repeat it in the video. I didn't get all the holes perfectly centered with the bushing. Some of them were just a bit off. And I did take this to the forum for recommendation if I should pull the bushing and redo it. And I was advised that if it bothered me enough, which it did because, you know, that's me, I could just chase it with a drill bit if I was very careful, just to even that out. And that's what I opted to do on those in particular to make sure that I had adequate oil flow and I could sleep at night. So I just wanted to point that out. I'm going to have to set up everything now for reaming, so we're going to end this video here. Do me a favor, hit that like button down below. Helps me out a lot when you do. Hit that subscribe button for more videos when they come out. A link will be provided in the top right when the next video comes out in the series. Again, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching. Would you like to reply?